Hey girl, hey! Welcome back to Jess in the Mess. I'm your host, Jessica C. Johnson, wife, mama, author, speaker, and your podcast bestie for real life faith stories and finding beauty in the chaos. Okay, now listen. Today's episode is one of those, okay? It's honest, it's vulnerable, and we're gonna call it The Mirror Lied to Me. Because let's be real, there's a version of us that the world sees, and then there's the woman we see when we look in the mirror. And for a long time, those two versions didn't match for me. And I'll never forget standing in my bathroom, of course, looking a mess, kids calling me for the 100th time in the next room, probably, reheating my coffee at least twice. And, just catching myself in the mirror, like just looking at who I was at that time, and I did not recognize her. I had a hard time loving her. And it wasn't because I started looking older or tired, though I did. Let's be real. Let's be real, okay? But it was because the light in my eyes was dimming. It was just like, if she was like someone else, she looked like someone who had been giving and pouring and showing up for everyone except herself. Like, always did it with a smile on her face and just never really showing that, like, how exhausted she is. But behind closed doors, you could just see how overwhelmed and overstimulated she really was. Like, that's what I saw. Like, I didn't even recognize that girl no more. But anyway, so it was just like in that moment, I realized I had become everything to everyone else and nothing to the woman God called me to be. And in my book, Jess Finding My Way, I write about this. And there's a part in there where I said I needed a wake-up call, a metaphorical slap in the face, and a candid look in the mirror. I feared losing myself again, which led me to build an unnecessary wall to guard against returning to that dark place. And sis, let me tell you, it hits me all over again when I read it, because sometimes the hardest truth is realizing that the mirror doesn't just reflect your face. It reflects the parts of you that you've stopped paying attention to. And the mirror, let's be real, the mirror is powerful, but it's not truthful. It just shows us what's visible in that particular moment. The tired eyes, the stretch marks, the parts we wish we could fix, by the snap of a finger, like a TikTok transition. But it doesn't show what's healing. It doesn't show the positive changes. It doesn't show the prayers that you whispered in the middle of the night, the patience you've had to learn, or the peace you're finally starting to walk in. And it wasn't until years later that I realized that, okay, this mirror is a lie, because I had to start believing that my value was attached to what I could see, not what was reflected as my truth. I had to see it with my own eye, right? And God had to remind me that, Jess, that's what you're seeing there. That's not what you see. You're what I said. You know what I'm saying? And so, if you ever looked in the mirror and just wondered where you went, I give it 110%. Maybe you've been like that strong friend, or you're the wife just trying to like hold it all together. The mom showing up even when you're running on empty. And somewhere in between all of that, pieces of you just start chipping away, and you just start disappearing a little by little by little. But what I want you to know is God never lost sight of you. Even when you couldn't recognize yourself, He saw you. He was never confused about who you are or what you carry. You are still His reflection. Even with the tears, the tiredness, the transition, you still look like grace. You still look good, girl. Even in the midst of all the chaos, you still look good. So you wear that messy bun with pride. You wear them sweatpants pride, and you keep your head toward your hoop. And you keep your head looking towards the hills from which cometh your help. Amen? Okay. So if you're standing in front of a mirror right now, if you're standing in front of a mirror, whether you stand in front of it right now, happen to be cleaning it, or whatever, if you just happen to be in a mirror at some point today, I want you to say this to yourself at least once out loud. God, help me see myself the way you see me. That is it. That simple. But it is life-changing, believe me. Because when your perspective shifts from the mirror to the maker, that's when healing begins. Because we all know in the Bible, it talks about how there is power in our tongue. And we have to be careful. And I talk about this in my upcoming book, Be Careful What You Say. We have to be careful about the things that we project, because whether it's unintentional or whether we really mean it. Because if we look in the mirror and be like, "Ooh, girl," and we spew something like negative, like, "Ooh, girl, like you're not looking good today," you pretty much letting your inner being know you ain't worth beauty. You're projecting such negativity onto yourself. And instead, no matter how you look, you just be like, "Okay, girl, listen, you might look a mess right now, but you still look good to me, okay?" No matter if you don't get a compliment today, you still look good to me. Because I know I do it. I know I do it. I mean, I like to dress up and things like that, but just during those moments where it's just like you don't feel it, you speak life into you, whether you feel it or not. You walk around that house with your bonnet, whatever you got to do, no matter how tired you are. It's like, "You're beautiful. I love you." You have to remind yourself of that. You cannot expect anybody else to remind you of your value. So, with that being said, I truly hope that this episode met you right where you are. I hope it was a blessing. But that's what the nest is for. It's a place to rest, to reflect, and to remember that you're still becoming. You're never going to completely be there in one day or in a week or things like that. These things take time, and you need to give yourself grace and opportunity to grow and develop. So anyway, if you haven't read my book, Just Finding My Way, you can get a copy of it on my website at thenovelnest.com, THEE novelnest.com. And that's where the heart of this episode came from. Its title is Beyond the Titles. And it's basically just a love letter to every woman who's ever just felt unseen in her own story. So I hope you check that book out. Follow Jess in the Nest wherever you listen, and come hang out on TikTok or Instagram and help us continue to build this beautiful community that believes in healing and humor. So until next time, I'm Jess, and this is The Nest. I'll see you next time.